Up next, we're going to have a session that we've featured in a lot of these, which is perspectives from an identity theft victim, with a bit of a twist, and that our victim was actually stolen from us. Person we hope to have out here was not able to travel, but my friend Eva Velasquez from ITRC is going to be able to talk a little bit about some perspectives on how victims are impacted, and then we'll take a break. Thanks.
So this is going to be a little bit of a twist, because for those of you familiar with this event, this is normally the time when I'm sitting on the stage next to a victim and asking you to listen to their experience and sort of put yourself in their shoes, because that's the reality. So let's just pretend I'm sitting there, and in that empty chair, that's one of you sitting next to me, as we just talk a little bit about Jana's experience and some of the experiences that we've seen with other victims. Now, it may seem like this is an easier task than it actually is, because you've gotten a little bit used to us being able to find the right person that can share their story and that is not going to be re-traumatized. But I can assure you that it really takes a lot of care. We as an organization, we don't want to create any additional harm and make victims relive sometimes the worst experience of their life, or at least in the top 5. And so finding that person can be really challenging. Now, in the case of Jana, the reason she's not here is simply because she had an injury and wasn't able to fly, and we wish her a speedy recovery. But it wasn't like the impacts that a lot of other victims experience. It wasn't because of shame or embarrassment, which is actually what 52% of the victims that we help every year tell us, that they feel ashamed or embarrassed that this incident just happened to them. It wasn't because she was feeling violated or vulnerable, which is what 71 and 77% of our victims tell us, respectively. And it wasn't just due to overwhelm, which is what 16% of our victims tell us, in the fact that they reported they felt suicidal after going through this. These are all statistics from our most recent Consumer Aftermath report. It's available for free online, so you can look those up. And that last statistic is very notable because that's a doubling. That has doubled in 2 years. Historically, we've seen that response rate hover 2 to 4% every year. So there were definitely people that were feeling like their only option out of this issue was to end their own life. But when we start seeing these numbers climbing so rapidly, 16% doubling in 2 years, that should get us to sit up and take notice that this experience is not something that's easily dismissed. Now, I'll just very briefly tell you what happened to Jana, because it's a little different than the stories, the experiences that we've brought up here in the past, because it does have a somewhat happy ending. Now, for Jana, this was an analog crime. A thief went into a bank branch with the appropriate credentials and withdrew $11,000 from her joint checking account. As soon as she received the alert and saw that this was happening, she told her employer. She was able to immediately go and start addressing this issue. She went to the bank and was able to talk with her bank branch manager and start getting information. She went to the police department and was immediately, or within a reasonable time frame, able to get her police report. And she was very grateful that even though the money was out of the account and she did have to wait for a period of time for that investigation to occur, she had the resources, both financial and otherwise, to shift some things around and not have the domino effect. And the reason that I thought it was a good story to tell was because when you look at that sequence of events, we realize that when all of the organizations and entities that have a role to play when someone is victimized actually provide the support, good things happen. Was she really, she was scared, she was shocked, she wasn't expecting it. She did run through that gamut of emotions, of course, but In the end, she was able to get this generally resolved and was made mostly whole due to the fact that she had an employer who said, of course, this is an emergency. You need to take that off. No arguments, no consequences. We talked to many, many victims where that's not the case. She was able to talk with someone at her bank, get the information that she needed right away so that she could then go to her police department and get that necessary document, that police report. That doesn't happen in a lot of cases. We talk to people every single day who struggle to get that first report, which is what they need so that all of those other consumer protection laws and regulations kick in and they can demonstrate that they are in fact a victim of a crime. Now let's look at a few. I haven't used this clicker before. Am I going to do it right?
Yes.
No, wrong one. There we go. Let's go ahead and look at a few other quotes from our consumer impact report. We're going to skip the video because we went a little bit over. So having zero funds to meet a friend for coffee or a drink and being totally isolated, feeling like the scammers took my life. Now, you may look at that and feel like it's slightly trivial. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't have enough money to go get a cup of coffee, but let's consider the domino effect. Right now, because they're dealing with the financial repercussions of being a crime victim, they not only feel like they can't enjoy those simple pleasures, they don't feel like they can get the support that they need from their community because they feel guilty that they can't go out and get it. And this is at a time when you really need that support. Sometimes just having a friend to talk to that says you're going to be okay can make a world of difference. And unfortunately, this person feels like I can't even go get that support because I don't have the money to be out and about in the world. Now, here's another individual. I've been in therapy for over a year, trying to get a better handle on how this happened. And I applaud this person for seeking that professional help. Sometimes that's absolutely necessary, but I know for a fact that this individual is paying out of pocket for that. If hopefully they have insurance and it's only a copay, but if you don't, think about the costs associated with doing that can be out of reach for many people. And even in the rare circumstance where this victim's case was investigated, went to a prosecutor's office and wound its way through the criminal justice system, they can't even get support for these kinds of needs. I know this from personal experience working in law enforcement. VOCA dollars, Victims of Crime Act dollars, that are provided to the states for their for police departments and in various programs, victim witness programs, they are not allowed to spend those dollars for nonviolent crime victims. They simply don't do it. So if it was a different crime type and this person needed professional therapy to help them deal with the issue, they would be approved. But for nonviolent crime, particularly an identity crime or an economic crime or fraud, they would not be entitled to that benefit. Sounds like we need to make a change there. And here's the last one on the experiences, just losing all of those tangible things that we grow accustomed to having access to, my photos, my videos, my documents, new accounts showing up every month in their name. A lot of victims tell us that they never feel like this issue is completely resolved or finished. It's more like a medical condition. It goes into remission. They never know when it's going to pop up again. And so just think about that. I've done all this work. I've lost access to all of these things that are like the landmarks of my life, the reminders, going through photos and remembering that trip, that birthday. I don't have access to that anymore. And I don't know when the other shoe is going to fall. These are life-changing impacts. But we also ask people what they do differently. What do you do differently after you've been victimized? I have a couple of examples. Set up alerts on financial accounts. I change my passwords fairly regularly. Look, we can argue the merits of whether or not you should regularly change your passwords and good password management. But the fact is, these people are making effort. They are engaged in making a change in how they behave and how they manage their identity. Same thing, I monitor all of our accounts for suspicious activity much more. Engaged, a behavior change, and it's due to the fact that they've had this experience now, and it's top of mind. Oh, I don't want that to happen again. It was absolutely terrible. How can I take a little bit of control, and what can I do? And then the last one, I do everything differently. It's terrifying as hell. For a lot of folks, they're not in this every day. They don't understand how their identity really works, how those credentials are used. And so everything being discombobulated, it is truly terrifying, but they are trying to make changes. Now I'm going to skip over this one because I know we're getting close to time. This is actually data from our business impact report, and it demonstrates the adoption by businesses of a variety of best practices. And you can see, we feel that these offerings and adoption rates are on the low side. And the reason I want to close with this slide is when we look at the terrible life experience, the impact that victimization has, and then we look at how that can be a catalyst for behavior changes. And yet businesses aren't offering all of the possible protective measures to these consumers. I feel like that's a real lost opportunity for everyone. These victims you give them an opportunity to create a silver lining, and they can be your ambassadors for change. Because I know what the feedback is. Consumers hate friction. Consumers hate inconvenience. There's always going to be a subset of people who do. I'm not discounting that. But you have a group here, a highly motivated and engaged group that would be your ambassador for these changes, that will tolerate some friction and probably tell their friends and everyone in their network, oh no, I'm happy to jump through some hoops because I know that this is keeping me safe, and I know what it feels like when these systems fail. Now with that, I don't know, Jeremy, do we have time for any questions? I know we're, all right. Well, if anybody has any questions, I'm sorry that Jana, again, couldn't be here and you got stuck with me, but I'll do the best I can. We've solved all the world's problems. All right, we're all in agreement. Let's make all of those changes and move on with the day. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So we're going to take a break for about 15 minutes. We'll come back at 11:15. Grab coffee or drink if you want. Bathrooms outside, and we'll pick up in 15 minutes with me releasing the Better Identity Coalition's new updated policy blueprint and report card. Thank you.